TJ Feeney. I've seen interviews where Mike Rinder referred to the RPF as a wonderful program of something for people who are stressed at their job. Would he have known the full horrors of the RPF at that time and was just forced to toe the party line? And what is the general awareness of RPF conditions within the Scientology public? Okay, so yes, Mike definitely would have been aware of what the RPF was. And the thing about the Scientology mindset and about extreme mindsets in general, and this is, I'm going to just keep preaching this because I think it's a very, very important thing to understand about all of this, is that a person who is in an extremist mindset about a particular subject or topic or area or person is completely unable to think critically about that topic or subject. It's an inverse proportion. It's a spectrum. It's not a black and white thing. It's not like the light switch just is suddenly turned off. But as you become more and more involved and more deeply accepting of any religious or any belief system, really, we're not just talking about religion here, any idea set or belief set, let's put it that way, as you go deeper and deeper in and you accept it as more and more true, and also, by the way, are making it more and more part of your own little personality package, you are identifying with that group, right? You and the group, same. So the more you get into that, the less critical you can be about that subject or topic. So Mike Rinder knows about the horrors of the RPF, yet at the same time, Mike Rinder also believes, at the time that he's saying this, and I'm just assuming this here, I don't really know Mike Rinder's, headspace or where he was at on that, but I'm communicating my ideas about it and what I know Scientologists and Sea Org members think. And what they generally, and I'll say Mike Rinder, I'll include in this, is that the RPF is also a necessary step and program in order to rehabilitate a person. See, the loaded language that we see outside of Scientology, when we look into it and we go, well, that's obviously nuts, right? Like calling this abusive re-education program a rehabilitation program. That's Orwellian as hell. But when you're in the Scientology mindset, those words mean exactly what they say. Like, you believe it's rehabilitation. I mean, that's what I thought the program was about. I knew it was punishment. I knew that as a Sea Org member, and I'm pretty sure Mike did too, that, going to the RPF is a bad thing. It's not something you want to do. And yet, at the same time, when I landed on the RPF in charge, the Sea Org member who runs the RPF and actually makes sure that everybody's moving through their program and is getting their steps done, that guy, who you could sort of think of as like a drill sergeant type personality. That is literally the description that Hubbard gives, is preferably you want somebody with military experience to be the RPF IC. And it's a drill sergeant kind of position. So this guy would stand up in front of our musters at the RPF and tell us that people outside of the RPF, like public Scientologists, actually want to pay to do the RPF, that there are people who have originated wanting to pay to do it, because they think it's such an amazing program, and we should be happy we're getting through it. And when we're taking way too long, we're languishing on this program by spending years on it, right? Well, this is the guy who runs the program. He definitely is understanding what the problems are and why it takes so long to get through this program. But here's this guy preaching at us that it's a 6-month program. And he knows damn well that it's not a 6-month program. He's literally in charge of it. He knows all the steps. And he knows there's no way anybody could possibly get through it in 6 months. Yet he kept repeating that to us, in the same way that Mike Rinder would repeat to the public and the press that the RPF is this wonderful re-education step, a time for people to chill, relax, calm down. And, at one point in time, back in the early 1970s, when this thing first started in 1974, that is kind of what the RPF was back when it was first on the boats, on the ships. And people did get a chance to kind of chill and decompress and do some work around the boat and kind of work with one another. And it really was a weeks long or a couple months program, and you get back to work. And I'm not saying that's, a wonderful thing, but I'm saying it's a very different thing from the RPF I did and the RPF that the flag orders describe now. So, which I went over in the podcast. So you get this sort of like contrary, you have the thing that's so amazing about the human mind is we are able to hold two completely contradictory pieces of information in our head at the same time and think of ways that both of them can be true at the same time. And even though they directly contradict one another, right? And I'm not just talking about one thing is true under certain contexts and another thing is true under other contexts, because that could be a case where two seemingly contradictory pieces of information can be resolved. I'm not talking about that because that's actually logical. I'm talking about the illogic of being able to make, black is white and white is black actually make sense. That both of those things can be true at the same time. And that's the amazing thing and the curse of having a human mind. So this is how Mike Rinder could tell the press or public, RPF, it's all a good thing, and still actually know that it's not. And yet believe both things to be true at the same time. I know it's wild, but that's how it is. And as far as the general awareness in the Scientology public, they're aware that it exists. If they are around a Sea Org base is generally how that knowledge comes about. If you're in a lower org, a city level church, you might hear about it, but of course you're never going to see or experience anything like the RPF at the local Denver org here. They don't have, they have a couple Sea Org members maybe, but they're not doing an RPF here. And the public never have anything to do with the RPF other than know that it exists. So that's about as much exposure as they have to it. When you go to a Sea Org base, sometimes you could see the RPF. And you're like, oh, who are those guys? Oh, it's the RPF. Oh, okay. And so you get an idea that they work really hard and they run around everywhere. And they seem, if you were to bump into one of them, they'd smile and try to put on a good appearance because they're not going to get in trouble for, presenting a bad image to the public. They're already in enough trouble as it is being on the RPF, right? They don't need to add to their misery by, spreading how horrible the whole thing is to the public. That's the last thing anybody in the RPF is ever going to do. So anyway, so that's kind of how that rolls.